experiences, and a lot more. Well, as we all know, this is a month where we celebrate women, we celebrate Women's Day. So we thought that it's very important for us to talk about, the kind of challenges, the obstacles that, women educators have faced or are facing or seeing their female students facing, how they're breaking barriers, how they're motivating their female students to break barriers, break the glass ceiling wherever possible. And with that, we conceptualized today's episode, which was breaking barriers as a woman educator. Now, when we were thinking of who to invite on this panel, I think one name that came to our minds, and especially when you hear her views and when you hear about her profile, I think she would do complete justice to this topic. And we decided to have Dr. Kshitija Singh join us today, who is a PhD in economics and the career and college counselor at Hometown Girls School in Dehradun. She's been certified by the IC3 Institute as well as the UCLA University. But more than that, I think what really makes Dr. Singh stand out is her approach to counseling, is her approach to education, where she believes that collaboration is key. She's somebody who's been working very hard through the IC3 Institute to build the community and help and build people along the way. And I think that is always the signs and makings of a great educator. So, with that, let us please welcome Dr. Singh. Thank you so much, Dr. Singh, for joining us today. We are so excited to be conversing with you this evening.
Kritika, thank you so much for your kind words, and I think I'm equally excited to be here. So I hope we do justice to today's session.
I am certain that you definitely will. For all my viewers joining me, you know the drill already. Make sure you're sending us a lot of questions. We pick up your questions and make it a part with our conversation with Dr. Singh. We've already picked up some earlier responses when we declared this particular topic on social media, and we have made sure that we included those questions suggested by you in our conversation today. So first things first, Dr. Singh, if we can know from you, what motivated you to pursue a career as an educator, especially as a counselor? Because as one can see, you're a PhD in economics, you have dabbled with hotel management, you have been a teacher. So how come career counseling, career counselor, how did this happen and what was the motivation behind this?
Yeah, so that's a long story, Kritika, but I'll cut it short and will give you a gist of it that yes, I am a educator and I have always been the educator. So I've been changing roles in the education industry itself. But there was a time when I moved on from one place to another, and it was kind of sabbatical, a little sabbatical for me. And during that time, I was just thinking whether I should go back to teaching or to managing or doing what. But then somehow, I couldn't figure it out, and then I really probably wanted to do something which was more meaningful and to the students, which could really help students doing something. So, well, I was thinking that, and in the meantime, my daughter, kind of did her grade 10, and we were simply discussing her subjects and everything. And when we were doing that, I realized that she needed a lot of hand holding and exposure at the same time. So, when I did that for her, and the outcome was just amazing, that she was very clear on her thoughts. She saw her pathway, that what she has to do and everything. And seeing that kind of transition in her really made me think that probably I should be doing this, because these days when there is so much of exposure, actually a lot of exposure, it is kind of, the children are not only getting a lot of exposure, they're getting more of confused. So they do need hand holding, they need right amount of exposure. So that's the reason why when I saw that the transitioning of my daughter from 10th to 11th and then to college, so I could easily understand that, this is because she got a good guidance. So then I thought that probably I should get into this and helping more students, because I think everyone today needs it. Had there been, counselors in our times, probably we would have been kind of more focused. I would have not done PhD rather than do something to become career counselor at a very early age. But then I did what I could, at that point. So That was the time when I counseled my daughter. I counseled few of her friends. I realized that children these days need some clarity and exposure and hand holding. So then that was the time when I chose to become a career counselor, and that was when I, did my few certifications and everything, and that's how I am a career counselor today.
How lovely. And I definitely think that, as a career counselor, especially when you're guiding students about what decisions they should be making in your life, I think the varied life experience that you have had have also adds so much value to the input you're giving to them.
Yes, that really helps. Of course, the experience helps.
So I think that is definitely something that you definitely have a one up because of, like you said, that the varied things that you've done. That's definitely added so much of length and breadth to the kind of inputs you can be giving to them today. Now,
Yeah.
as we were talking about your daughter, I'm sure in your career, and since you're a head career counselor at a girls' school in Dehradun, the Hometown Girls' School, um, how do you think things have changed for your female students today in terms of career choices? Do you still see that there is some sort of hesitation that, probably not the students, but the parents have towards some career tracks? How are you breaking the glass ceiling through your students, and how are you motivating them to do that? If you could throw some light on that.
Yeah, I mean, yes, parents are quite reluctant to lot many careers still, but yes, since now I am there, I talk to them, and we are, since in our school, we have got this career guidance program right from grade 8. So the kind of exposure that we are giving to our students now is helping them to choose any careers, be it a marine biologist, be it a pilot. So they are definitely breaking the streams. That that these are female eccentric careers, these are male eccentric careers. So yes, our girls are doing that. There are a lot of girls who now look forward to go into army, and they are like, oh, we want to become a pilot. I want to go abroad and become a pilot. So these were not the things that were parents were thinking earlier. I think neither the girls were. So yes, of course, there is a lot of transition in their choices of career, and it's when it comes about motivating. I think more than motivation, they need exposure. They just need the right information, because sometimes they just hear it from somebody or they just read it over the internet, and of course everything on the internet is not always correct. So I think more than motivation, it is kind of right exposure to them, right amount of exposure to them, and telling them that no, this is not true which you have read, it is more of this. So it is not that this can job can be done by a male only or not the female. And as it is, we all know this is now gone, those days are gone now. Everything can be done by anyone. So that's what we are trying to teach our girls. And thankfully our girls are that adaptive here, that they take every challenge possible, and their turnout of thoughts are very good, as a matter of fact, in terms of gender biasness or something. So I think yes, we are able to establish that kind of motivation and exposure in them, and hence they are taking their right decisions.
That's very heartening to know, Dr. Singh, that how girls themselves, there's no longer that hesitation and they're willing to explore different pathways. And it's so nice to hear that the school is supporting them and being so instrumental in pushing them forward in these streams. But in this conversation today, we have counselors and teachers who join us from various different parts of the country, again, where they are interacting with students with varied backgrounds. So for children, especially girl students who are not coming from such evolved households, evolved backgrounds, how would you, what is the message that you want to give to teachers dealing with those students, and how should they motivate their students to think beyond and to do beyond? What would your, advice be to them?
Yeah, so the key to motivate all the students rather would be active listening, because sometimes as a counselor or teacher we just miss out those little things that student is trying to tell us. So I think active listening is very very important, and teachers should be open, because teachers are the primary contact of children. They know what children are doing. They indirectly can understand even more than counselors, because being a counselor, probably you'll meet the student maybe once a week or twice a week, depending what kind of career and guidance curriculum you are handling. But yeah, I mean, teachers are the primary source. They are with students, for a lot more time than we are. So for the teachers especially, I would say that they should be listening actively. They should actually actively watch them, that what they are doing, and tell them this is right, this is wrong. Because sometimes, it is noticed that a child was doing very good with finance, but then she's no way interested to do, but she wants to do something different. XYZ could be. But then it's a teacher's duty to tell a child that this is your strength. Try to find out something suitable in your strength. This will help you to grow. And eventually that happens. But sometimes children, because teachers are not that involved, teachers just think it's their job to teach and get over with it. So one time, this is important. Teachers' job is not only to teach and be free, they are the best, they can be the best mentors for their children. So they need to put this much of effort, that they find the strength of a child and suggest them that this is good for you. Now you can talk with your parents. And if needed be, they can probably be a bridge between the parents and children. Because sometimes it happens that parents are on the different platform, student is on the different platform, and the one common person that probably can talk with both of them is the teacher or the counselor. So be, kind of putting that, filling that gap very actively is very, very important. And sometimes, like for me, I have to go out of the way to do that. So, that is very important, to have a good connect with your child. Let the child trust you and come and talk to you uh, in whatever way they want to. Let them, hear them out, like whatever they have, we should hear them out, and then we can probably suggest them. So
Absolutely.
I think active listening, of course, is the key for that.
I think active listening, like where you very correctly pointed out, and also the fact of being an effective bridge between the students and parents.
Yeah.
Sometimes what happens between students and parents is there's so much friction that is created that it might require that a neutral third party just comes in and tries to show both parties that what is the perspective that each of them are trying to
Yes.
put.
Yes.
So I think that's where a very, key balancing act is either played by the teacher or the counselor. So I think
Yes.
that's extremely essential that, if you have a supportive teacher and counselor who's sort of backing you in
Yeah.
this journey, it can really make things easier for the student as well as the parents who are also key
Yes.
stakeholders
Yeah.
in this entire process. Now, the kind of experience that you have, ma'am, I mean, even outside of the school that you operate in, you meet educators day in and day out, you're training counselors, etc. So different roles that you play. I'm sure you must be hearing so many insights and stories about, what really transpires in the various schools. So, if I had to ask you today, do you think there is some sort of inequality that exists in the school ecosystems when it comes to gender that you have heard of, or if it was something that existed, how did other schools surpass it? So what are the pressing issues that we have around making schools an equal environment for both genders?
Yeah, I mean, we all have seen that education has been primarily for ladies and the feminine gender, and we have seen that lady teachers are more there than the male teachers. But it's kind of changing now, especially in terms of counseling and kind of into these roles, because counseling is no more about teaching. Counseling is just sharing your experience with your students and guiding them right. So for that, I had seen that like if I talk about IC3 cohorts, in my initial IC3 cohort, I had seen that very less number of male members rather than female members. But now I see that even the male members numbers is increasing slowly, gradually. So, and even not in IC3, otherwise also I've seen to the people I meet, to the counselors I meet. There are people who have given up their corporate jobs and they've come to this field, because one, that they have a vast experience, the industry experience. Second, they have, they have traveled that journey which they want to share with the students. So people are, especially the male sector, is coming into this, and they realize that this is no way a gender specific employment or a job, but it is more of a job where you are sharing your experience, handholding the newer generations and taking them forward. So yes, the changes are happening, but yes, earlier, of course, it was more lady centric when it comes to teachers. But I think anybody can be teacher as far as they want to be teacher. Because teacher is not only about teaching. That's what I sincerely think. The teacher's job is always you make impact on the student life. So anybody can be a teacher, and somebody who really want to impart knowledge and make impact on others life should become a teacher rather than for any other reason. This is what I seriously believe. And I think I am seeing that change in my own organization, whereas in others organizations as well. So I think the change is happening now, and people are understanding that this is not only women centric industry or something like that.
Absolutely. I think, earlier there was a stereotypical image that, if it's teaching, especially school teaching, then, only a woman is better suited to it. But I think now with the evolution that we have in societal dynamics, as well as the evolution of teacher itself, that, a teacher no longer, you know, holds that conventional image, somebody who just facilitating communication, but actually is a facilitator of learning.
Yeah.
And which goes both ways. I think, with these rapid changes happening,
And especially these days, post COVID or during COVID, the teaching profession has just evolved like anything. From classrooms to Zoom, this was just a drastic evolution.
and I think, also the pandemic, especially when kids were at home, parents were also being a part of school and classes, it made them realize the kind of contribution, the kind of effort that actually is put in by the teaching community, and the amount of, blood and sweat that goes into it.
Definitely, definitely.
I think that made them realize that, this is really not some time pass kind of a profession, but it's a very serious business that, where you're shaping the future generations of the country.
Definitely, yes.
So I
It
think
is a hell lot of responsibility, actually.
absolutely, because at the end of the day, I always feel this way that students actually are spending maximum time at school. So it's really that influence of teachers and of that school environment that is going to shape them as individuals.
Definitely.
So they are playing a very important and critical role, and I think every parent at the end of the Omicron variant, when we were sending kids back to school, everybody was like had a sigh of relief. That I mean, it was great initially to have them at home, but hats off to the teachers for keeping them so productively engaged, because by that time they had reached their wits end.
Definitely.
So I think definitely it's got a lot of respect. It's definitely brought a lot of credibility. That this profession much deserved.
Definitely.
And I think that's where the pandemic was a great opportunity. Since we're talking about breaking barriers, what I'd also like to know from you, I mean, and this could be an experience that you have had, or that you've heard from your fellow, women educators, your colleagues. At any point, did they feel some such sort of disadvantage being a woman educator, or any sort of, I might say, um, discrimination that was faced, or etc.? Is that something that exists in the school education ecosystem?
I would say for me it was never, because I think when it comes to a teaching profession or a counseling profession, anywhere, when you are working as a profession, if you are doing it wholeheartedly, you're prepared, then you're there. I mean, be it a man or a woman, it does not make a difference. Yes, it could be little in the higher education because I've worked. So it is little difficult for young, or maybe I can say the female teachers, to deal the growing up boys rather, or growing up children, because but for the schools I would say that I don't think so there could be any disadvantages of being a woman, because I think it's advantage only at the school level, because we know that, that being a woman, you already have that warmth in you, you have that mother in you, and probably you can take care of the children, so of course I don't think so that I ever faced any disadvantage, because maybe I was always prepared to take it up, be it a school or a college. And since I headed the institution where I had about lot of boys and men working, so there was never a problem. I think we need to be just prepared to take up that challenge. uh,
Absolutely.
as far as you are prepared, nobody can really challenge you, and you can have any disadvantage of being a woman. And I think the times are changing as it is.
Totally is. And I think you very correctly pointed out it's about the mindset.
Yeah.
That if you think that you're rock solid in what you're doing, gender or anything becomes irrespective. You will
Yeah.
command that respect, you will hold that position and own it. So that is very, very true. But I must ask you now, as we step into the new decade, we have so many new young educators joining us, so many young women joining the profession. What are the new barriers that you feel that these educators need to break in the years to come?
Um, in the years to come, I think the children are getting very smart day by day. So the new generation you get to your institutions, be it a school or college. So what I feel that the most challenging would be for the educators is to keep updated, and we have to do that now. We really cannot just be unprepared and go in front of students. So I think this is the most and important challenge, be it a school education, be it a college education. It is the mandatory thing for now. All the educators is that you need to be prepared. You have to keep evolving with the time, learning new techniques. Like we all just switched on from classrooms to Zoom. For some, this transition was pretty easy. For some, it was very, very difficult, but then everybody managed to get it in due course of time. So I think we will need to keep updating and evolving ourselves now on the regular basis, rather than, as and when required. Because I think that's the only thing. Because if you can't go to the classroom unprepared, because children are far ahead in you in terms of exposure, information, technology, everything. So if you want to, be standing tall and loud there, so you have to be that much evolved and prepared. So I think that's the thing what the educators coming up, new educators would need, and keep evolving. Of course, the probably pandemic had made us prepared for that.
I think that's very good advice that, really change is the only constant. And if that's one lesson that we have learned from the pandemic, it has to be that
Yeah.
we have to constantly be evolving, we have to be adaptable. Only when we will keep evolving and be adaptable, the same will be absorbed by our students. And
Yeah, same will be absorbed, and then that's the only way to deal with them.
absolutely,
Because if you,
absolutely.
if you just lack a bit, and that means you're a step behind them, and you, as an educator, you can't be behind them.
Absolutely. No, that's very true. I mean, the access that they have to information and knowledge, you have to be two steps ahead of them.
Definitely.
Otherwise, they will also not take seriously and they would not vest that much trust in the inputs that, you're giving to them. I think that's some very, very good advice. And I mean, like I said at the beginning of the episode, I think, your responses and inputs will only speak volumes about your commitment to education and what is your personal ideology towards education and counseling. And I think you have done thorough justice to it. And I would really like to thank you, ma'am, for taking out the time, because we know it's a very busy time for educators right now, with schools coming and springing back into action, a lot happening on the examination fronts, things
Yeah.
constantly changing. college applications also, some of the late decisions coming in. So we know it's a very, very critical time. So we really appreciate the fact that you took out the time and join us today. And it's really been wonderful conversing with you and hearing from you your life experiences and your experiences as an educator. Definitely has been very enriching for all of us.
Thank you so much, Kritika. I think we had a very meaningful conversation, and probably I could leave some piece of advices to budding educators, counselors, and teachers. And together, probably we'll be able to handle this Gen Z.
That's absolutely true. I mean, the idea is for all of us to come together, collectively share our experiences and learn and grow together. So I think that has been today's conversation has been a great testament to that. So a big thank you to you, a big thank you to all our viewers for joining us and for sending us your questions beforehand that we could make it a part of our conversation with Dr. Singh. We'll see you again on next Thursday where we talk about a new topic related to education. We'll see you on next Thursday at 5 p.m. Thank you so much, everybody. Keep safe. Thank you so much again, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.